whoever they were talking to said something they didn't like, and they just smashed it on his head right there in the middle of the bar.
Welcome, Ben, to the World XP podcast. It's been a while. I think the last time that we really saw each other, you were being the best server at our favorite local bar. Now you're the real estate agent with the hat. How's it going, man?
Good. Thanks for inviting me on the show. Pleasure being here. Yeah, doing really well.
All right. And for this part might seem a little rushed because I was an idiot and I forgot to hit record. So we were about 10 minutes in before we realized that. But basically what we were talking about was, so we can go through it a little bit quicker, but basically some of the stuff that I had asked Ben was, so he was bartending for a while, and I had mentioned on the last episode with Zane that had been something that I had been kind of considering on and off for a few years in my off time, maybe pick up a shift at not necessarily a bar like Jay's, but maybe one that's a little bit less busy. Because I don't know if I could deal with all the drunk people yelling at me for different things, but to kind of go through the responsibilities and what it's like to be a bartender in a situation like that, and also the things that maybe you don't see so often, the things that are kind of not necessarily behind the scenes, but when it's less busy, kind of what goes on down there.
Yeah, so I think bartending is a great thing to pick up if that's something you're interested in doing. A lot of places are looking for help right now, but the more availability you have, the better it is for them. Now, that was back when they could pick and choose. So, I mean, you could possibly get a shift somewhere if you only want to work once or twice a week. But it's definitely better when you have more flexibility. In terms of the stuff you see when nobody else is around, I think the biggest thing in terms of that would probably be the regulars, like not the regulars that come in every weekend, but the regulars that come in every day, always at the same time, always drink the same amount, always spend the same amount, and generally tip all the same amount. But it makes you wonder what they do. I mean, you open the bar at 11 a.m. and somebody's waiting at the door to come in to drink 5 drinks and then go about their day, or even more, and they just sit there for hours. So it kind of gets you wondering why do they do that? What's going on in their life to where, one, they can afford that, and two, they don't have to work during the week. You never know.
Gotcha. I've often heard that a bartender that like they moonlight as therapists. Is that the case in those situations more, or have you ever experienced that? And in which, like, if that's the case, how you kind of just listen more than offer advice, or does it just depend on where the conversation takes you?
Yeah, it really does depend on where the conversation takes you. And some people are different than others, but yeah, you definitely moonlight as a therapist. And when you're in the bar and it's super busy, that's not you being a therapist. But if it's just a few people at the bar and they just get to talking and you get to listening because you got nothing else to do, yeah, you definitely hear the stories, you definitely hear the problems, and sometimes they're looking for advice, sometimes they're looking for just somebody to sit there and listen to them.
Gotcha. Does that ever weigh on you if you hear some like horrible stuff, or do you just learn over time to kind of let it roll off you?
Um, I didn't get the therapist role as defined in my experience. I went from
Hmm.
serving to managing pretty quickly. I didn't do too much bartending. So I never really got that level. I was more like the therapist to my coworkers rather than to the clients. But you do hear a lot. I mean, there's there's a lot of different people in the industry. So on the client or the coworker side, there are a lot of issues with substance abuse. There's a lot of that you see with the the coworkers, sometimes even more than the clients. I mean, or customers come in, they'll drink, um, but you don't necessarily always get to that level with them, and generally they're not there confessing their sins.
Yeah.
I mean, the level of stuff you hear is whether or not somebody cheated on somebody, or whether or not they're about to break up with their significant other,
Mm,
at least in my experience.
yeah. I feel like some of those stories get kind of funny.
Yeah, some of them are ridiculous. I mean, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are definitely times where somebody will be talking to somebody, or a bartender will be talking to a customer, and then when they're done with the conversation, they'll come over to their other coworker and just laugh about whatever the situation was. Or not that we're all talking shit about people, but
No, of course not. One of the things that was interesting to me about Jay specifically and how you personally went about things was like whenever we would come in, I'm sure there was you were like this with other friends from Mary Washington as well, but you would always make sure right away when we came in, like we never had to wait at the bar for drinks because you were always able to kind of help us out. Was that a function of you being a manager and having more freedom when it was busy to kind of pick and choose? Or like I know at some other restaurants, people have like their section, like they got this table, and this table. Or was that just a function of it being late at the bar and you're just everyone's just trying to get help to whoever needs it, or both?
a little bit of both. I mean, as a server, if your friends come in, you're generally the one that gets that table. Like they're either going to request you or you're going to tell your coworkers like, hey, those are my friends, like let me take the table. And I mean, unless your coworkers absolutely hate you, they're going to give it to you. On the managing side, I mean, yeah, I get the freedom to do what I want in terms of serving people, in rush scenarios. Now, you still got to make sure you're not getting in your bartender's way or your server's way. But if your friends are at the end of the line and you want to help them out, yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, that was really nice that you did that. And we made sure you knew it. You had to tip well, of course.
Yeah.
When you became a manager, was that weird for not for you personally, but for you with the relationships with your coworkers and those people because you transitioned from server to manager fairly quickly. I know other people get like generally hear like, oh, I've been a server for 10 years or whatever. And that wasn't the case for you. And I assume that you were probably younger than most of the other people that you were working with. So how did that transition go? And what was like, did you actively try and get into management quickly? Is that how that kind of worked? And then how did the relationships with your coworkers like end up changing like with that transition?
Yeah. So my goal when I went into the restaurant industry was I wanted to learn everything I could to eventually own my own place. Um, that's changed a little bit with COVID. I can get into that a little more later, but yeah. So when I started out, I was serving. I was serving, and I'd done a little bit of bartending before I started at Jay's. So I did that for, I would say, serving and bartending combined about 3 years. And then when I got to Jay's, I was there for a year, and then they bumped me up to management. But I had expressed that when I first started, like I'm looking to move up. Um, and I figured it would be a great place to start in terms of just learning the business. Um, so once that happened, there definitely was a change. Few coworkers I remember definitely had some issues with it. But you gotta make sure, one, okay, is if this coworker is somebody you care about, well, work it out. If it's not, then it doesn't matter. Like that might sound cold, but the
It's
um
life.
that's it, you know. But all the ones that I'm still friends with, all the ones that I still talk to, we're cool. They respected me once I started. Maybe took a little time to get used to it, but we got along. I didn't ask them to do ridiculous shit all the time, so that helps. I didn't blame them for stuff that was out of their control. So
Yeah. I feel
definitely
like
depends on how you manage as well as where you started.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's hard a little bit difficult to manage that transition from being part of the like part of the like team so to speak to then you're in charge of them. I had to go through that as well not too long ago. And I feel like as long as you're genuine and you don't micromanage and you kind of just not let them do what they want, but just you're kind of just there, like making sure that things are going smoothly without being in everyone's hair. I feel like the transition can go pretty smoothly. I think it's when people feel pressure to make sure everything is right all the time that's when conflict arises. So I feel like
Mhm.
for you being kind of like in the mindset that you were of wanting to move up, that you were already prepared for to basically not panic to control everything, which I feel like helped
Yeah.
probably a lot. And I could tell from the way you were during rush, like you were just kind of chilling in the corner a little bit, unless you were helping somebody. Like you weren't in people's faces doing this or that, which I thought was cool. That was admirable,
Yeah.
to be honest, because during rush, it's very easy to get agitated when things don't go well.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, you got 100 people in your bar, you got 50 tickets waiting to be made. That could be 50 drinks, that could be 100 drinks. Like, and it's just it takes that much time, you know? It's the slow, what is that phrase? Uh, slow is smooth, smooth is
Fast.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just do the work, do it slow, take your time with it. I mean, don't go like a sloth,
Yeah, of
but take
course.
your time with it. Make sure you do it right, and it'll be fine.
100%. Because if you do it right the first time, then you don't have to go back and do it again.
Exactly.
Um, I actually had that situation. I was in New Orleans like a month ago, and we were with Jenna's coworkers, and he ordered a Manhattan, and I didn't know what it was, but it didn't matter to me because I wasn't making the drinks. And the bartender comes back with like what I think happened was, so for those listening, it's like a specific type of martini, and he came back in just like a cocktail glass. And Jenna's coworker was like, like what?" Like he was very confused. So what I personally think happened was they made the drink and then they just put it in the wrong cup because they were busy, and so then it
Mhm.
became this whole headache of like, okay, well then they came back with this one, and then the waiter came back and said, "Well, my manager just made it, but he ran into somebody, and the cup fell and the glass broke." And I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah,
Like if you just do it right the first time, then you don't have to run
yeah,
into it. And then so he owned a restaurant, so I asked him, I was like, "Does that make you more lenient, like our understanding of that?" He was like, "Hell no, the opposite." And I was like, "Oh, fair enough."
yeah. I mean, there are different schools of thought with that. I mean, if you're out of glasses and I mean, first of all, if you're out of glasses for any type of drink, you don't have enough glasses. But if you're
Yeah.
out of glasses, you gotta make the drink. I mean, a Manhattan in a martini glass is the correct way to make it, but there've definitely been ones in rocks glasses. So it's really it can be based on the restaurant. There's been more leniency and more what is it, fluidity or adaptability for it
Hmm.
more recently with certain drinks, but definitely if you're trying to go with that authenticness, making sure the whole cocktail is cohesive even to the glass is definitely the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if they had come out and said like, "Hey, we ran out of martini glasses, like this is it," then maybe it would have been different. But the customer service side of things was it looked very disorganized. Um, so I think that's why he had the reaction he did. Personally, I don't care too much what kind of glass my drink is in, as long as it's the right one. Like at the end of the day, you
Mhm.
drink it out of like a cylinder type thing with a handle. Like so,
Yeah.
I'm kind of lax, but I definitely understand why people would feel that way.
Mhm. And there's all different levels of a restaurant, you know? You got casual, you got, luxury, if you will, or very high end. So, I mean, if somebody's running a restaurant and they want it to be as authentic as possible, they're gonna have issues if something's not in the right glass. Granted, I don't know if you need to make sure every single time, like, if you're that nitpicky about it, yeah, that helps your brand. Um, but once if something bad happens, isn't gonna sink everything.
No, of course.
But yeah, there's different levels. You go into a bar and order a drink. I mean, most of those cocktails, I mean, if the bartender doesn't know how to make that, they don't know how to bartend. But most of those cocktails, people kind of do their own thing with them on a lot now. So
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So I'm sure you've got some crazy bar stories. Do you?
Yeah, a few.
Give us a few of the good ones.
Okay, let's see. I remember one time, I don't remember if it was a fight night or not, but I mean, before I started at Jay's, there were a lot of fights there. By the time I started there, they had definitely gone down. So they, although when I started there, they would still seem to have to throw somebody out every weekend. So
Every time.
yeah, there's still issues, but I mean, I liked the work, I liked the job, but I mean, I think there was one time somebody was talking to their significant other and had a glass in their hand, and whoever they were talking to said something they didn't like, and they just smashed it on his head right there in the middle of the bar.
Holy shit. Did it knock him out?
No, I don't think so, but I mean, broke the glass, which is hard enough.
Oh my
So we had to
gosh.
get them. I think we actually had her trespassed, and we gave the cops all the info for the assault charge, but I don't know what happened to
Oh,
that.
oh my God.
So there are others like that. I mean, there are a few times you had fights. There was a few in the bathrooms, a few just around. I mean, I can think of at least 3 times where I'm walking through the crowd and somebody's about to start a fight in front of me. So I had to back off with like six to eight drinks on a tray and try and get somebody's attention so that I don't drop the tray, but also these people stop fighting.
Yeah.
um, there were times where you had to clean. I mean, we had to clean throw up all the time, but
Oh, I'm
like
sure. Yeah.
times you had to clean blood off the floor, like just just the kind of atmosphere, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if those are the crazy stories you're looking for, but
I mean, I don't know. Smashing a glass on somebody's head is kind of, that's up there, especially if it's right
Mhm.
in the middle of the bar, too.
Yeah, like didn't even try to hide it.
Jeez. How difficult is it to weave through a crowd of drunk people carrying a tray of drinks?
It's difficult. I mean, it helps when you're not below everybody. I mean, I'm 6'2", not that that really matters, but it helps when you can hold the tray above everybody, so you're not necessarily bumping into people with it. Um, but it's still difficult, especially when you you still got to tell people to move out of the way. Like
Yeah. I feel like
people
though, if
like
you
to
hold it up
crowd.
here and somebody like bumps your arm and like,
Yeah. I mean, you usually do that just to get over something.
yeah,
So you don't really want to hold it up there the
yeah,
whole time, but at least it gives you the ability to do that, so you don't have to knock into somebody.
yeah. Fair. All right. We won't tell anyone. Have you ever dropped a tray before?
Yeah, totally. I don't remember how many, but I can think of like once or twice I dropped it. Um, most, I think I dropped it and broke a glass once, but it could have been more. Um, Most of the time, you just spill the drinks and you have to go remake them or get the
Yeah,
bartenders to remake them.
yeah. All right. So you said you wanted to get into management because you wanted to own your own restaurant. Obviously, you're very customer service oriented, I would say, as evidenced by your choices of career and job thus far in your life. Tell us a little bit about, is the end goal still to own a restaurant, or you're enjoying the real estate, or kind of what got you into the real estate's not really a customer service industry, but kind of is. So, for lack of a better term, what got you into the customer service world, or the working with people communication sort of world?
Um, well, that's a good question. I think that growing up, I had some like I could socialize with people, but I guess I didn't make like lasting connections with a lot of people. So uh, once I got out of high school and started going to college, I wanted to branch out a bit and become more social. And so there were a few different jobs I did. I don't know if you ever got those letters in the mail from Vector Marketing Corporation.
Yeah, once or
Um,
twice.
so I actually did that. Sold Cutco for a few years, and that really did help me get out of my shell a bit. allowed me to be more social. And then I just went into restaurants. I really wanted to own my own restaurant. Like I liked the industry. I liked the history of it. I like the like how is liquor made, how is beer made, like all that kind of stuff, even wine. And then I think it's just being a host, like being the person that hosts the party is something I've always liked. Um, so that's really what drove me to get into it. With the pandemic, I've shifted my focus a little bit. With having everything shut down for 2 months and not being able to work, really changed my idea of whether or not that kind of business was as recession proof as I thought. Um, I think liquor stores are a little bit more recession proof, but
The most.
um, that's really where I shifted from direct ownership, or at least that direct path. Um, and I wanted to do real estate for a while before I switched. I went from Jay's, and then once I was there, I actually left in 2020, right as everything started to reopen, um, and went to a catering job for a catering company, and then actually got laid off in February. So figured why not? I felt trapped at that company. It wasn't what I wanted to do. So figured why not do this and see where it goes.
Fair enough. Before we jump full into the real estate, a lot of people open restaurants because they're cooks and they like food, but that's not the case for you. Like you could open like a distillery or a winery or a brewery or something like that, but you wanted a restaurant. Why is that?
I mean, I think I still do like food, but I don't consider myself a cook. Um, I mean, when I was working in the restaurant industry as a manager, it's definitely something you actually learn to do, even if it's just on the job training, or on the fly. And I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I would be out there creating my own recipes or anything like that. But yeah, I wanted the customer service side of it.
Hmm.
Maybe I thought that restaurants would be a better idea, but honestly, I'd love to own a distillery. Like that's definitely in the plans. Um, and be able to create something with that kind of history uh, is cool to me. Um, my dad does a lot of historical tracking of our family and found that one of our ancestors owned he was a liquor and beers rep of some sort back in the early 1900s, and then right when prohibition started he bought a bakery. So
That was a good choice.
we thought that that bakery was a front for something. We don't have any actual proof, but it's a cool kind of like historical thing that we like to think about. um, for those of you who don't know, you need yeast for beer,
Hmm.
so a bakery is the perfect cover, um,
A hundred
for brewing
percent.
your own beer.
Yeah, man, he was up to something for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. What a guy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's good that you don't know because it means you never got caught. So,
Yeah.
did he continue doing the beer and liquor stuff after prohibition got repealed?
We didn't see any. I don't know. I didn't check that far, but the only records we have are of the bakery.
Gotcha. Fair enough. That's a cool story. I'd make the most of that. Be like, yeah, he was working for Al Capone. What a guy.
Yeah, I have a whole bar designed after it, so hopefully
That's
you'll see
sweet.
it out there someday.
That'd be great. Yeah, man. Like once COVID dies down a little bit more, and if you're able to do that, definitely would love to come see it. Ah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. All right, let's jump right into the real estate stuff. So a lot of the audience for this, at least as far as I'm aware, is around our age. So most of us have not bought a house yet, but are looking to soon. Um, what? Well, let me back up. First, to get your real estate license, what does that entail?
So that's a 60-hour course. You can do it online. You got to take a test on that online course, and then you got to go into a testing facility. They're called PSI. It's one of the companies that does them. Very like, you got to put everything in this bag. This bag gets locked. Like you don't get any kind of access to anything other than what you're supposed to get, so that you can't cheat.
Yeah, no
And
Google.
yeah, right. You can't. It's not an open book. The pass rate, I mean, it's a 60% pass rate on your first time for the licensing requirements, which isn't that low, but can cause some worry. So thankfully, I passed it on my first time, but yeah, I was worried for a little bit, but yeah, it was pretty smooth. They say you could do the 60-hour course in like 2 weeks, but I mean, that's a lot. So it took me about a month or so to do it, before I was able to take the test.
Gotcha.
So
And then, all right, so you take the test, you get the license, and now you've got to find a broker to work with. So
mhm.
how did that process work for you? Was it just like applying for other jobs?
Yeah, so chances are, I mean, the second you get licensed, you're gonna get swarmed by brokers. Like it doesn't cost them anything to hire you on. So because you're commission based for the most part.
Hmm.
Some places like Redfin or other brokers that don't charge as much of a commission, they'll pay a small salary and then give you a small amount per transaction that you do. Um, but you have to do a lot of volume to really make a living. Whereas you could do like half, if not less, volume and still make a great living as a realtor if you're doing it all on commission and you're getting that full commission. Um, so with that, I was applying for random jobs before I decided and like set my sights on real estate, and I came across one thing on Indeed and submitted my application, and then a month later they gave me a call and I was like, sure, let's do it. So very similar, but a lot of the times, if you're not already with a broker, by the time you finish your test, they'll come out of the weeds. Like they're everywhere.
Is it do they do that because there's a shortage or just because they pull in a percentage also, so the more people that they have, they just bring in more?
Yeah, they pull a percentage. So
Gotcha.
so it's not every broker has the same split, they call it, but anytime you sell a house, you have a certain amount of money that you have to pay to your brokerage. Um, and that amount sometimes gets capped at a certain level, depending on the broker. And then after that, you keep the rest of your commissions. So it's really, they can get an extra 30 grand to more a year based on the number of agents that they have on there.
Gotcha.
Now they do that because they provide a service. It's not that they're just doing that because they want to milk you for money,
No,
but
of course.
they cover your insurance. They make sure that your stuff is, their T's and I's are there.
Yeah, crossed and dotted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. Interesting. Sounds like, I mean, so then to be a broker, you need like a separate license, I would assume, and
Yeah.
that
So you
sort
have
of
to be
stuff. Gotcha.
a salesperson for 3 years. You have to have a certain number of transactions. You have to be active, and I believe you have to have a certain number of transactions. But you have to be active, and it's another like 150-hour course you have to do.
Hmm.
So a lot more coursework, but a lot more liability.
So for you then, because you're the type that would want to, I feel like, do that. Is it still you'd rather do the distillery stuff, or you kind of umming and ahhing about which one you want to do, or either one or both eventually?
I mean, potentially both. I do like the idea of running businesses. I mean, I was a business major, so like that's something I've always been interested in. Uh, I don't know if I'd want to go into a broker level thing at any time like soon. Obviously, I can't do it in the next 3 years, but I don't know if that's
Sure.
really where I want to direct my energy or focus. Um, but it's something to consider.
Gotcha. All right. I want to move on to where I was going to go. So most of the audience for this is about our age. You're obviously very in tune with the market and the goings on and um, like how things are working out for first time home buyers. And I suspect I want to ask you about all your reels, and I suspect that the reasons are kind of intertwined for these two questions. Why you're doing the reels is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, they're connected.
All
Um,
right. So go ahead. Tell us a little bit about the like if you were because in when we were messaging, you asked me that question. And I figured that you had something in mind, a spiel in mind. So go ahead.
so I do want to let everybody know before we get a little farther into this. If you don't have a house yet, it's not like don't stress about it. Like especially with us being our age, the average age for a first-time home buyer in the DC metro area this year was 33. So if you're younger than that, don't worry about it. If you're older than that, don't worry about it. The average age for all home buyers in the DC metro area was like 40. So you got some time, take it slow, figure it out. In terms of the reels, I like to educate people. I like to bring value, and I want to do that in a way that's entertaining without taking too much time. Um, I it's difficult to do an entertaining thing about subjects that are sometimes a little boring. Um, but I'm learning with it. It's taken a lot of my time to do those reels. But I'm learning with it and I'm enjoying it. And I want to get that exposure. So it's kind of hand in hand, like both bringing value and getting exposure.
Gotcha. They're very helpful. Not gonna lie. If you've not seen them, well, we'll put the link down in the description to Ben's Instagram. But basically, what he does is he's got a term of the day, and it's related to real estate, obviously. But he goes into a short little description of what it is. Some of the terms I knew I had heard of, but didn't know what they were. Other ones I'd never even heard of. So for me, they're quite helpful, anyways. But for, this is like a real short question before we get into some other stuff. But how do you pick your term of the day? Do you have just like a randomizer? Like
A little bit. I have a booklet that I just look at and I'm like, oh, I haven't done this one yet.
fair enough. I feel like that's how these things go most of the time. People are like, do you have a formula? You're like, no, I just pick one. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the market, because I think you've probably heard this, a lot of people our age have been, oh, the housing market's really high. I don't want to buy right now.
Mhm.
What are you seeing from what are you seeing from the market in terms of is it wise to wait to is it better to get in early or what are you seeing what's the situation from your perspective because obviously from a purely economic perspective it's a little bit different but you're in the home market specifically so what's
Mhm.
kind of going on with that the last couple of years and where are we?
So to really get into that, we have to go back to 2008. I think that's what everybody's biggest fear is. A lot of housing prices are above the levels they were at in 2008, which is really stoking a lot of fears for people buying right now. I think the key thing to know and understand is that it's not 2008. 2008's crisis was related to the fact that lenders were lending to anybody. They had what they called ninja loans, no job, no income, or no income, no job. And they were just lending to anybody. And then they were taking those loans and selling them to banks and investors. And those investors thought that those loans were good loans. They were not good loans. So once those loans defaulted, everybody's investment in those loans crashed. And that's why we had all of these people lose their homes. Also, they had a lot of what are called adjustable rate mortgages, where they got a really low intro rate, and then it jacked up once that intro period was over. So they could be paying double or triple what they had been paying before. And most people couldn't afford that. A lot of people had multiple loans on multiple properties that they couldn't afford. So that really caused the crash in the first place. What we're seeing now, partly because of that, one, lenders aren't doing that anymore. They have all these different regulations they have to go through, and they're not lending to anybody unless they know that person can pay it back. So we're not going to see any crash related to the lending side that we saw in 2008. One of the things that we've been seeing is that the housing supply is down because of 2008. In 2008 and 2009, 2010, nobody was lending for homes being built. So the number of homes that were built for the last decade has been half the number of homes that were built for the previous 4 decades. Like if it was 100 for the 40 years before 08, then it was 50 for the previous 10 years since 08. So we have this huge shortage nationwide, and we don't see that recovering for a few more years. Once it does, there may be a correction. It may balance itself out. But with that, and then COVID one, kept people in their houses, and then also made people realize how small their houses were. So you had half of the people who were like, oh, we're not going to move yet. And then the other half like, oh, we need to get out of here because I can't keep working right next to my partner in our 1-bedroom apartment. And then that created its own shortage, which caused the prices to go up as well. And then with the way office work is being done right now, it'll be interesting to see whether or not going back into a city is as beneficial as it was. If everybody's able to work from home or has more flexible work options, they're more inclined to go for a longer commute.
All those things make sense. So
a great movie, if you want to like fully understand what happened in 08, is The Big Short, with who was in it? Ryan Gosling, I'm forgetting his name right now, Steve Carell, Brad Pitt, a few other people, that really gets into depth about the crisis, and you'll see why it's a bit different than it was. But
gotcha. Well, that's good that we're not going to have a giant crash anytime soon, hopefully. I think, you know who Matt Taibbi is?
No.
He's a reporter, like independent reporter. He did a lot of work on the 08, like the crash in 08. I think he's got a book out on it. It's also, I've heard, is very good. I haven't read it, probably should, but okay, so you mentioned kind of a price correction. At what point, like, so for the people that are worried about potentially buying because they think it'll be like 08, so we know the lending regulations are more strict now, so that won't be that type of situation. But even like a market correction, that would cause some problems, wouldn't it? Because I would think that stuff closer to the cities would end up dropping a little bit just because of what we were saying about the work from home situation. So I feel like people are just very unsure, and so they don't want to sink $500,000 into something that next year will be worth $250,000.
So nobody believes it's going to go down that low. I mean, if there's a correction, it'll be
exaggerating, but yeah,
I get it, but it'll be a small correction, because the biggest thing we're seeing right now is the supply. We don't have any. So houses are being sold before they're being built. Houses are being sold before they're even on the market. Like there's still a lot of competition in the market right now. So we don't see that correction coming anytime soon, at least not in one that things would lose half their values. I mean, I don't see that happening ever. The one thing to keep in mind though, even those people that bought at the peak of like 06 or 07 or 08 before the market crashed, almost all of them, if not all of them, have made that money back in terms of their home value. Like
Sure.
that home has reappreciated back to either the price they bought it at, if not more, since then. And when you look at home ownership, looking at home ownership over the course of the loan period really helps you understand whether or not this could be a good investment. Because if you're looking at a 30-year fixed mortgage, there's never, like, you could look at every single house over the past 30 years. There's never been a time where that house didn't appreciate.
Yeah.
So even if it corrects for the first few years, or even if there's a slight dip at some point, over the length of the time that you own that property, like that's going to be a blip. That's like your retirement account going down a few $100 or a few $1,000 and then coming back the next year. It's the stock market going down and then coming back up. So it's not something that I think people should really be worried about, in any way. Like,
Yeah. That's
and
important to know.
yeah, one of the biggest things is houses appreciate every year. So whether that appreciation is small or whether that appreciation is big, they keep going up. So if you have the money to buy now, and I don't mean buying it and being house poor, I mean having the money to buy now, then genuinely figure it out and see if it's something you want to do, because it's only going to get more expensive.
Yeah. So when you say, so do you have a general rule of thumb for like, when you say, can you actually afford to buy it? Like, do you have a rule of thumb when you sit down with a client and like, you're like, hey, maybe this is outside of your range because you're only making X and the mortgage is going to be Y. Do you have sort of a general rule of thumb for or advice for people who are looking to buy for the first time?
If you're looking to buy for the first time, advice wise, one, talk to a lender. They're going to be able to give you what you can afford, how much you can afford, and they'll make sure that everything is there and everything's good. They'll be able to do a better job of that. If you're looking at a house though, and you want to say, okay, how much would I realistically need to be able to buy this house, or how much would I realistically need to start house shopping? Whatever the price of the house is, take 10% and assume you need that much cash to purchase that house.
Fair
That
enough.
would cover a 3% down payment. That'll cover your 3% closing costs. That'll cover your roughly 1% EMD, which is your earnest money deposit. And that'll allow you to cover your inspectors and your appraisers, as well as having a little bit left over to do whatever changes you want to do when you get in the property, like painting or fixing a faucet or something.
Gotcha. So I've heard mixed things about down payments before. Sometimes like I've heard that the higher the better, because then you're got less like total interest on the mortgage. I've also heard that if it's a little bit lower, then you have more flexibility if rates go lower, like interest rates. How does that work?
So again, I have to preface this with talking to a lender really
Sure.
helps and will really solve these kinds of issues. If you have any like super in-depth questions, I can say that the amount of down payment generally ranges from 3 to 20%. You can get a 3% down on a conventional loan. There are different types of loans. Some of them actually go down to 0. So if you have a VA loan or a USDA loan, you can get 0% down. Those processes are different and sometimes those take longer, but it is possible. The thing to keep in mind is, what is it that you can afford? If you go in at 20% down, then you don't pay PMI and you'll get
What's
a better
PMI?
interest rate. Private mortgage insurance. Sorry. So they basically, if you're doing 3% down, or 5% down, anything less than 20% down, chances are you're going to pay private mortgage insurance, which is basically a way for them to cover your riskiness, by charging you more money a month. but it allows you to still get into a property for less down. You don't necessarily need as much cash on hand. And it would just get folded into your monthly. And again, a lender is going to get really into this. There are definitely benefits of going 3%. There are definitely benefits of going more. But if you get approved for a loan at 3% down and it's a $250,000 loan, which means you're putting down, off the top of my head, like $5,000, $6,000. That means if you went to 20% down, you're only adding an extra the extra 17%.
So it'd be like
to your
you'd put
to
down
your
like
purchasing.
50 grand or something.
Yeah. So I think I did this with the wrong numbers because I'm not being able to do it in my head. But
No, you're good.
it like the difference in purchasing power doesn't necessarily change in that down payment. Lender will be able to explain that better, but like they'll prove you I'll put it this way: the loan amount wouldn't necessarily change. So at 3% down, they're giving you a loan for $250,000. At 20% down, they're still giving you a loan for $250,000. But because you have more cash down, the amount of house you can afford is higher. Does that make sense?
So it wouldn't go. So like they still give you the loan for the 250, but you're just paying back more of it up front, basically. So like they still loan you the 250, but if you put down 20%, you're just paying 20% of the 250 that they already gave you, versus the 3%.
No, so they'll still
No?
give you that 250. So it's like, I mean, the exact numbers are a little off because the down payment is included in that. But say you get a loan for $250,000, and you're doing 3% down. That comes to, we'll say, $6,500, or $7,500, and that gets factored into that loan amount. So the loan they're actually giving you is 250,000 minus 7,500, or whatever that 3% is. I'm again not doing math in my head. And then that gives you your total loan amount. If you're doing the same thing but with 20% down, you're at $50,000 that you're putting in. So the loan amount could stay at whatever 250 minus the 3% is, and then you're adding another 17% to the amount that you can pay. So your 250 in terms of house price goes up to 300 or close to that, 298, I guess. Gotcha. Because they're loaning you the same amount of money, but you had more cash total.
So maybe if you don't know the answer, that's okay. But I'm just curious now. So why wouldn't they just loan you less if you paid down more?
It's really dependent on the lender. Sometimes they'll do it that way. Again, like the lenders, the end all be all for anything mortgage related. I can advise, I can try and help through, but that's very dependent on the lender. Sometimes they'll do it that way, sometimes they won't.
Yeah, it's a totally different world. Two worlds together in one.
And as an agent, I can't claim to like be the educator or be the knowledge person on those things. Like I can't do something that's not within my realm.
Sure.
You know?
No, of course. That was more just a curiosity thing. I know we got a little bit into weeds, but it's just like,
yeah,
it's part of it. All right. So you're doing another, you just did a first-time homebuyer seminar. Was it at the time of recording yesterday? So today's Thursday, so Wednesday. How did that go?
It was good. We had a few people there, went through the process and enjoyed it. So I'm gonna start it up again next year, probably early to mid-January, and advertise it more online and see if we can get some more people in.
Sounds good. Do you have so give us a little bit of a quick sales pitch. somebody wants to go, what are they going to get out of it?
You'll get the whole buying process, like from start to finish, how long it'll take, what to look for, who to talk to, um, the estimated costs of different things, and the full timeline from when you start looking at homes or when you start talking to a real estate agent to when you'll be in your new home.
Gotcha. You got, yes, I can ask. Well, ask you this. We'll put the link for that down in the description. Of course, if I assume people can just DM you if they have questions. Perfect. So all that stuff will be in the description. We'll get Ben's Instagram down there, so you'll get the reels, and you can DM him with questions for the seminar. Now, one more question before we wrap this up. What's next for you? Like 3-5 years? Like, what, you want to go back into the restaurant? You want to keep doing real estate? What you got? What's your plans?
I mean, I'm gonna stick with real estate for now. Goal being to really just see where it takes me and enjoy it while I'm doing it.
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. Well, we've been talking for a little while. Only some of it got recorded because I'm an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. I think we only missed about the first 10 minutes or so. But
Yeah.
it was great to have you on. Really appreciate it. Learned a lot. Obviously, if, like I said before, if you have questions, feel free to, I'm volunteering you right now. Feel free to DM Ben. And yeah, wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, man. Great talking to you.
You too. Have a good one.
You
With
too.
that, we will see you guys next time. Peace.